What is happening, world? In 2023, we're going to be faced with a huge stress test as The Guardian has laid out for us. Now, as I spoke about yesterday, we're going to see how it all unfolds. Now, according to this article, it basically says we're going to be facing a huge stress test in 2023. If you go back and have a read, have a listen to what I went over yesterday, I guess the analysis from Jim Regards, he basically explains a lot. I'm not going to go over it again, but we're now seeing this sort of narrative, this sort of talking point in the mainstream media itself. And I guess from here, it's worth pointing out, not always is the mainstream media incorrect. Sometimes they actually are just trying to, explain to you the news and explain to you what could be happening. Now, a good example of this I'll go over later on, relative to Australian media. Mainstream media, that is. Now, this stuff is getting crazy with FTX. It's getting very political, US based, and I have no idea what's going on anymore. But we have a look here at I'll cue the desktop audio. This is Laura Loomer. And she caught up with AOC outside of Capitol Hill, and this is what they had to say. And it's in relation to, she asked if AOC will commit to investigating Kevin McCarthy for accepting and using stolen FTX money in GOP primaries. When she saw me, she said, "Oh no." That's why I thought I'd make the thumbnail. Now I'll play this one through.
Republicans.
I wanted to.
You made a deal.
Excuse me, Paul Gosar talked to you about it, didn't he?
Do you think that Kevin McCarthy should be investigated for using illegal FTX money against America First candidates in their primaries? Will you commit to investigating him?
I'm not sure if that's true, but
It's true. You should look into it.
Congresswoman, you made a deal with the Republicans.
I wanted to.
Now, like, what is going on with the whole crypto money and I guess US politics? It's just getting so insane. I really think everything needs to be cleaned up. But again, I think, as I saw yesterday, something about greed. And there was two other words. I can't remember what they were off the top of my head. Greed and... what was the other one? There was two more. You know what I'm talking about. If not, go back, have a look. But we've got here, this is the latest thing. XBB 1.5. Is it ever going to end? I'm not really going to go over the scientific facts that is not yet known, as we saw with the previous variants that were out there. But I'd like to bring that to attention. Now, where was it here? I think this guy has it kind of right in terms of maybe the war was not meant to be won and it was meant to be never ending. Basically saying spreading like wildfire, this article, and it's saying that health experts are warned about, immunoevasive contagious COVID strain. What is happening? Tin top. Now, I'm not sure if anyone else is coming. Yeah, it's almost like I think this guy pretty much sums up anything else I can add just by saying the war was not meant to be won. It was meant to be never ending. I don't disagree with him at this point in time. Next thing. So we've got the judge rules that Celsius user gave up legal rights to their BTC by using the platform, and the 4.2 billion of crypto deposits are now the property of Celsius. So they actually, it is literally not your keys, not your coins. And now it's legally, it's comparable to legally. You could add legally, not your keys, not your coins, based on this judge ruling. So all these people out there getting famous by losing their crypto, I'm not sure they should be the shining light, the good examples of how to deal with cryptocurrency. But the media coverage seems to be very focused heavily on those that are whining, whinging, complaining about cryptocurrencies, about people losing their cryptocurrencies. Now, just checking my phone. This one here is behind the paywall. Wall Street Journal. Silvergate, we covered that yesterday. One of the major cryptocurrency banks, well, banks that offer cryptocurrency related products. I think I'm saying that right. But Silvergate raised to cover 8.1 billion in withdrawals during crypto meltdown. Bank sold assets to at a loss to cover withdrawals and cut 40% of its staff, but remains committed to crypto. So yeah, I didn't know these guys were a thing. But it says here the collapse of the well, basically this is what brought it to my attention. Crypto focused bank Silvergate fires 40% of its staff. So that's the, in a nutshell. This is a long drawn out sort of what they do, how it happened, balance sheets, assets, employees, things like that. Now we have here, this is what I'm saying with this whole crypto thing tied into, it's getting like never ending. So crypto's tied into money, tied into politicians. Politicians are tied into, I guess, government agencies, alphabet agencies are tied into now Twitter. Now, we got told they weren't, and it turns out they are. So now we have here, this is what I was covering the other day. Part of the Twitter files. This one here says the US government agency demanded suspension of 250,000 accounts, including journalists and Canadian officials. I'm still trying to digest it all. So I go in and have a look. It's broken this thread down as well. So this was number 11. And if we have a look here, basically, thread, the Twitter files, Twitter and the FBI belly button. 2020, Twitter was struggling with the problem of public and private agencies bypassing them and going straight to the media with lists of suspected accounts. Okay, so I'll read that again. Twitter was struggling with the problem of public and private agencies bypassing them, going straight to the media with lists of suspected accounts. Again, this is like politics rolled into freedom of speech, rolled into technology platforms, and then you've got investors, and then you have never ending. Hey, what's happening, man? And then you've got this February 2020, as COVID broke out, the Global Engagement Center. And then on top of that, then you've got the whole COVID, and then you've got the whole medical field, and then it just gets so muddied. So what are we even looking at anymore? It just feels like one massive mess. We've got this. So 2020, as COVID broke out, the Global Engagement Center, fledgling analytic intelligence arms of the State Department, went to the media with a report called Russian Disinformation. Oh my God. Russian Disinformation Apparatus Taking Advantage of Coronavirus Concerns. Has a screenshot there. Number 4. The GEC, so it's now looped back to the agencies, and now it's melting in with politics, in with national security. What more can we want? The GEC flagged accounts, Russian personas and proxies based on criteria like describing the coronavirus as an engineered bioweapon, blaming research conducted in the Wuhan Institute, and attributing to the appearance of oh my god. So hang on. And attributing the appearance of the coronavirus to the CIA. Okay, so trying to unpack that. I can't believe this COVID thing is just still going. It's never ending. And now they're looking back. Now they're trying to say it was like, we need to cut down on the Twitter freedom of speech, I guess, on Twitter, because we think we've identified Russian personas, and they're talking about the coronavirus, and they're saying it was coming from the Wuhan Institute, and then it's saying that attributing the virus to the CIA. And then you've got conspiracy theorists on top of that saying that, you know, things like the research that could have leaked out of a Wuhan Institute biosecurity lab, and that turned out to be, I think, true and verified, but not true and verified, but there's more merit to that now. But now we read here that back before we knew this, it was being, you know, attributed to Russian personas and proxies. Very, very confusing. And this is how we all lost our freedoms. But anyway, so State also flagged accounts that retweeted news that Twitter banned the popular US Zero Hedge, claiming the episode led to another flurry of disinformation narratives. Zero Hedge had done a report speculating that the virus had lab origin. Again, later on, I'm pretty sure they like started to question that and thought it might have more merit. But anyway, the GC still led directly to news stories like the AFP's headline, Russia's linked disinformation campaign to coronavirus, US says, coronavirus alarm, US says, and Politico's story about how Russian, Chinese, Iranian disinformation narratives echo one another. Okay. But to be fair, at this point, you don't really want Russian, Chinese, Iranian influence on your particular country if they're not, you know, friendly towards you. But at the same time, if you're cancelling out people who are actually speaking the truth, and then labeling them as Russian, Chinese, Iranian, then that kind of sucks. But hey, what do I know? Number 7. You haven't made a Russia attribution in some time. When Clemerson's Media Forensics Hub complained Twitter hadn't made a Russia attribution for some time, Trust and Safety Chief Yoel Roth said it was relative of their motives. Really? Again, what is this even about at this point? We're happy to work directly with you on this instead of NBC. Roth tried in vain to convince outsider researchers like the Clemenson Lab to check with them before publishing stories about foreign interference to media. Oh my god, I'm getting bored just reading this out loud, seriously. I have to try and understand this, to figure out what is actually going on. Twitter was also trying to reduce the number of agencies with access to Roth. If these folks are like House Homeland Committees and DHS, once we give him direct contact with Yoel, they want to come back to him again and again, said Policy Director. So this is like internal communications. When the State Department GC, remember this was 2020, during the Trump administration, wanted to publicize a list of 5,500 accounts. It was claimed would amplify Chinese propaganda disinformation about COVID. Twitter analysts were beside themselves. This whole, it caused so much confusion. Now, number 11, the GC report appeared based on DHS data circulated earlier that week and included accounts that followed 2 or more Chinese diplomatic accounts. They reportedly ended up with a list nearly 250,000 names long and including Canadian officials and a CNN account. What? But yeah, so this is the one Elon Musk pointed out that, you know, the government basically wanted a list of accounts to be scrubbed, and we all got told that that wasn't happening. We all got told there's no such thing as shadow banning. We all got told you're crazy if you think this was going on. People who were pointing this out at the time, if they didn't get their accounts banned, it became very difficult to talk about these particular topics. Only now, with Elon Musk at the head of Twitter, or after he purchased it, not sure how the business is structured, only now we're able to bring this sort of information on the platform and hopefully be able to combat other mainstream media outlets who do not wish to cover these particular topics, because what you'll see is a convergence of people toward Twitter because of its free speech approach and the ability, like this particular thread, to be able to provide free and open and accurate information to the masses. Now, if mainstream media do not like this particular content, they will probably not run with it, they'll not publish it. So people seeking this information will have no choice but to go to Twitter. So it is quite ingenious what Elon Musk is doing. Again, you do have to worry about the Russian, Chinese, Iranian disinformation out there and bots and things like that that could be trying to, mess with your mind basically. But if you're able to find legitimate threads and legitimate data, why would you not use it? Is my question. Again, you'll see over time the mainstream media will become more irrelevant in terms of their ability to reach others and share information to them, because the information that they're actually sharing is more of a talking point and a narrative issued by whoever issues it. And quite often we can see here the push to censor Twitter was almost a direct instruction from the government directly or government agencies tied to the government. Now, this is why mainstream media is so controlled in a sense, in relation to certain topics, I believe. Now, moving on, but that's not to say they don't do, accurate coverage of other things. Just some certain topics at times we can see it being very political, as opposed to being, from a third party point of view with no affiliation with anyone, an independent third party, I guess, an objective independent third party. Now, anyway, we have number 12. Roth saw GEC's moves as an attempt by the GEC to use intel from other agencies to insert themselves into the content moderation. So this is like it. Okay. Everything I just said before, this is now explaining on top of that that the agencies trying to insert themselves into content moderation, like on Twitter, on Facebook. So everyone talks about communist China and how their internet is very censored, but yet when you look at Twitter being used in, say, the US in this example, and probably other countries, if it's being censored on Twitter and directive is coming from the US, myself here in Australia, if I try and look up the content that was censored, I would not be able to access it because it was censored from instructions from the US. It's very, when you lay it out like that, it's very obvious to most people when you lay it out like that. If you try and explain this to other people, it might just go off the top of the head, have no idea what you're talking about, and you might get labeled as some weird, crazy conspiracy theorist. I don't know. Or they might label you as someone who supports Russia, China, and Iranian communist regimes. I'm not actually sure if Iran's a communist regime, but I'm pretty sure they're authoritarian. Now, back to here, the GC was soon agreeing to loop in Twitter before going public. Again, so they're just like checking with the handlers, before they can release data. Anyway, but they were using a technique that had boxed in Twitter before. The delta between when they share material and when they go to the press continues to be problematic, wrote one official. Or maybe they're talking about something else here. Maybe they're talking about contact with the media. Not sure. Now, number 14. The episode led to a rare public disagreement between Twitter and state officials. Oh, here we go. What have we here? How dare Twitter? How dare you, as Greta Thunberg would say, disagree with the government? Sorry, not the government, the state officials. Because there's many layers of the government. Twitter dispute State Department claims China coordinated. Oh my god! And then yesterday when I was covering the other account, it was basically saying how it's really unbelievable what happened. how much influence politicians, US politicians, had over Twitter, and the ability to continuously push out information, to, I guess, to try and support their talking points or their narratives. It's just insane. Whereas anyone else without the same powers that the politicians have, this would not be possible. To influence Twitter to, you know, lean in one direction, whether that be censoring, whether that be moderating certain types of content. Now, an empowered individual, might be able to try and tweet the information out. They might be able to get together, form their own groups, you know, try and spread correct, accurate information. And then I guess the government will be going around trying to play the game of whack-a-mole, which is very concerning, because if there was no intervention by the government agencies to try and cut back on certain information being relayed to the world, there would be no need to play this game of whack-a-mole. It would just be purely information being spread, go, this is what we found, this is what's going on. But instead they do this like deceptive cloak and daggers in the background, pulling the strings to coerce actors like Twitter to be able to produce this content, censor this content, or maybe not display this content. It's absolutely insane. And this is all coming to light. Again, this is all because Elon Musk has now got control of Twitter. So you don't need to go, well, you can go to the mainstream media, but if they're not going to cover this, people are going to be able to produce this on Twitter. But at the same time, there might be insane loonbird conspiracy theories, so you have to be careful what you consume. So this one here, State Department, China working with Russia to spread coronavirus disinformation. Again, this appears to be people going directly to the media to create a talking point in opposition to Twitter's actual information that they held. And so when people hear this, oh, what's happening, Selt? Not sure if you're still here, sorry bro. Yeah, so if you're able to leak these narratives out, get the talking points rolling before even checking, or, you know, because you don't want Twitter to be put in the light of being accurate. You don't want them to be seen as being correct. So you're going to roll ahead with your own talking points, get the public talking, and the saying how the lies travel around the world before the truth has the time to put its pants on, something like that. So if you're able to do that, then yeah, you control the narrative, you control what it is everyone believes, thinks, and talks about. And then if people don't agree with that, then they're the crazy ones, even though they actually could be correct, because their truth still putting their pants on. Anyway, number 15, it makes sense to push back on GEC participation in this forum. When the FBI informed when the FBI informed Twitter that GEC wanted to be included in regular industrial call between companies like Twitter and Facebook, DHS and FBI Twitter leaders balked at first. Crazy. Facebook, Google, and Twitter executives were united in opposition to GEC's inclusion, with ostensible reasoning, including the GEC's mandate to offensive IO to promote American interests. Okay, have a look at this. It's just unbelievable that this is all happening, and it's all being released, which is amazing. But trying to get your head around it all will take a long time. To explain very complex things in a simple manner is difficult at times. Hi team, wanted to share some news I received from the at Facebook. Our partners at the FBI made the decision to add representatives from the deep state, from the State Department GEC, to this week's Industrial Gov Election Security meeting. FBI pushed back based on our past discussions, and FBI ultimately removed GEC. But they've indicated that This is unbelievable. They will be explicitly advocating the GC to join these meetings going forward. Google and I are aligned that GC's presence in these meetings is problematic for several reasons, including, highlighted here, the GC's mandate for offensive I/O to promote American interests. I/O, what does I/O even mean? I have to look that up. The relative lack of this discretion and caution from senior GC leadership in sharing reports, analysts based on shaky methodology and limited track record of successful collaboration with the industry, especially as the election heats. See, it stems all the way back to the election. So this just from like someone who doesn't understand about how everything works. Basically, the gist of this would be for me that it appears that, you know, the government is trying to sway the influence of the masses by swaying the use of platforms like Facebook and Twitter to present information in a certain way that is in line, I guess, with certain politically correct sources of information that they want to share. Which I would call a narrative. That's crazy that they're releasing this openly. Thank you to Elon. Especially as the election heats up in the coming months, introducing an actor like GC into what has to date been a stable and relatively trusted group of practitioners and experts poses major risk and could undermine a channel of significant importance to our election. What? Man. This is like insane stuff. Okay, computer, will you work? Yes, you will. Alright, number 17. A deeper recession. A deeper... Oh, that's weird. Okay, number 17. I feel like someone's in my computer. Now, number 17. A deeper reason was a perception that unlike the DHS and FBI, which were apolitical, Roth put it that GC was political, which in Twitter appeared to be partisan code. I think they thought the FBI was less Trumpy. How? This is, oh my god. So this took place... okay, I'll explain it. So this took place before Brandon got in, and maybe they thought that, you know, there was some influence somewhere, and they didn't like it. And so Brandon got in, and moving on from that, now we got insane inflation. Anyway, now 18. After spending years rolling over Democratic Party requests for action on Russia, so this was the stuff we're covering yesterday. The Democratic Party was pushing hard to basically influence how Twitter operates. Now, requests for action on Russia's linked accounts, Twitter was suddenly playing it tough. Why? Because Roth put it, it would pose major risks to the GC, and especially as that's what we saw before. So they weren't happy that Trump got in. So they played hardball. They produced their own narratives by releasing data to the media, creating new talking points, which made public opinion sway against Twitter, which forced Twitter to roll out new terms of use, which allowed them to censor as required, which then conveniently lined up with coronavirus and people who were, I guess, against certain treatments, and also people who were against anything to do with Brandon, except they could not understand memes, maybe, because I'm pretty sure memes, like comedy, is still allowed to some extent. But again, now we've got Twitter open, a kind of more free and open Twitter, because I still think these agencies are working in the background for less nefarious reasons, in terms of not being being guided by a Democratic Party, possibly, or it's insane. When senior lawyer Steve Giacardo tried to argue against GEC's inclusion to the FBI, the words resonated with Elvis, not Laura, i.e. with Elvis Chan, not Foreign Influence Task Force Unit Chief Laura. See, this is insane stuff that they're releasing. 20. Eventually, the FBI argued first to Facebook for a compromise solution. Other USG agencies could participate in industry calls, but FBI and DHS would act as sole conduits. That's crazy, man. Roth reached out to Chan with concerns about letting the press-happy GC in, expressing hope they would keep circle of trust small. Man, this is... State NSA and CIA. Chan reassured him it would be a one-way channel, and State, GC, NSA, and CIA have expressed interest in being allowed on in listen mode only. You know, listen mode only. That's fine, right? Okay. Just remember when you're private messaging in your Twitter, it's just in listen mode only. It's not an active, like, you know, active changing text mode. It's listen mode only. Okay, so number 23, Belly Button. Sorry, I'm laughing to myself because I can imagine the havoc that could be wreaked. If it's what's not listen mode, you know. Anyway, so Belly Button, we can give you everything we're seeing from the FBI and USIC agencies, Chan explained, but DHS agencies, SISA, will know what's going on in each state. He went on to ask if industry could rely on the FBI to be the belly button of the USG. Man, I don't want to keep reading this stuff. It's freaking me out. But oh well. They eventually settled on an industry call via Signal. In an impressive display of operational security, Chan circulated private numbers of each company's chief moderation officer in Word document Signal phone numbers. What the fuck? Sorry. Subject line, list of numbers. This is the image. Hi yo, sorry again for the delay. Attached is a list of numbers for the Signal channel. Let us know when it has been set up and we will send a text message on it. Our attorneys want to confirm that you will have the message settings to not disappear. We will need to be able to screen capture every command post to document it. What the hell? I'm getting the biggest headache right now reading this. It just doesn't sound right. Like, you know how, isn't it a leak? Yeah, anyway. 25. Twitter is taking requests from every conceivable government body, beginning with this Senate Intel Committee, which seemed to need reassurance Twitter was taking FBI direction. Execs rushed to tell Team SSCI they zapped 5 accounts on an FBI team. What the f... Okay. I should have created some flowcharts with this, because this is some spicy stuff right here. 26 requests arrived and were escalated from all over. The Treasury, the NSA, virtually every state, the HHS, from the FBI, DHS, and more. So that video of Elon when he's talking and he says every single conspiracy theory was correct about Twitter, and if anything, it's actually worse than they were talking about. They also received astonishing variety of requests from officials asking for individuals they didn't like to be oh, God. At this point also, there was leading up to this, there was a lot of individuals who were already banned off of Twitter and all these media platforms, almost as a test run leading up to this. So had they been on the platform, maybe requests would have come through for them to be banned, but they were already removed, so that was convenient, I guess. That's insane. Here, the Office for Democrat and House Intel Committee Chief Adam Schiff asked Twitter to ban journalist Paul Sperry. So, you know, if you're a journalist trying to exercise, like Julian Assange or someone, trying to exercise your journalistic rights, you could be banned off Twitter. quite easily, apparently, if someone didn't like you. Right. So, 28. We don't do this. Even Twitter declined to honor Schiff's request at that time. Sperry was later suspended, however. We don't do it, but he was suspended, you know? Twitter honored almost everyone else's request, even those from GC, including a decision to ban accounts like that one and that one, because GC identified them as GRU controlled and linked to the Russian government, respectively. Okay. The GC requests were what a former CIA staffer working at Twitter. What? GC requests were what a former CIA staffer working at Twitter was referring to when he said our window on that is closing, meaning days when Twitter could say no to serious requests were over. Do they even keep track of all this? Like, do they know what they did? Is this what's being rolled out now? What they did, you know, we're going back over what they did and why it was, and how it was done, basically. Remember the 2017 internal guidance in which Twitter decided to remove any user identified by the US intelligence community as a state-sponsored entity committing cyber operations. By 2020, such identifications came in bulk. So they had to make sure. It always sounds like, this sounds crazy, but it almost sounds like they feel, they being, I guess, the US government, I guess the agencies, I guess that batch of people, that batch of entities, that organization, whatever you want to call it, they so strongly felt that somehow Twitter and the social media platforms played a role in the election results of 2016. They wanted to have ultimate control of these platforms by 2020 so they could be sure that but how did, that's insane, because if that's the case, that logic indicates that the election results could be swayed by a media platform, but the media platform is generally used by individuals. So based on that logic, you could say the government didn't want individuals having the way they wanted, the government wanted the government having its own way. Based on that logic, you know, in that thought experiment. That sounds crazy to say, but then when you really analyze it, it's almost what it seems like, you know. Yeah. Alright, I'll keep going. Just my head's spinning at this point. That was weird. The USIC requests often simply began with we assets and then provided lists, sometimes in separate Excel docs, they believed were connected to Russia Internet Research Agency and committing cyber ops from Africa to South America to the US. So they were trying to identify, I guess. Which is, you know, understandable. But then what if these people weren't, you know? Oh my god, this is like serious shit. Unclassified. I should, you know. Anyway, this is publicly available information. Number 33. One brief report sent right after Russia's invasion of Ukraine early last year flagged major Russian outlets like Vedomosti and this one. Note the language about state actors fits Twitter's internal guidance. Okay, 34. Some reports were just a paragraph long and said things like the attached email accounts were previously used for influence operations, social media collection, or social engineering. Without further explanation, Twitter would be forwarded an Excel doc. What the hell? Again, what? Okay. There we go. This is what they were given: Advanced Persistent Threat (APT). Cyber actors used to the attached email accounts to create hundreds of social media accounts between mid and June and early September 2022, possibly for use in influence operations, social media collection, or social media engineering. Social engineering. I think the world's just gone batshit crazy with this whole social media thing. 35. See, that makes you wonder, you know, when you see a division being created possibly in the Hexagon community based on social media, knowing that operations like this could be taking place. The question is then, who is running the operations? Are they, you know, what is their objective? That is, again, that is some very deep thoughts, I think. Yeah, wow. They were even warned about publicly surrounding a book by former Ukraine prosecutor Viktor Sokhin, who alleged corruption by the US government, specifically by Joe Biden. Wow, yeah, so he's now the sitting US president. And the government wanted to cut back. See, that's weird, man. Like, if they're warning and stopping accounts because this person was talking about corruption by the now sitting US president, and this was taking place before the US president was elected, this doesn't look good. Like, it doesn't look like we live in a free and open world. Because if this is happening in the US, who's to say it's not happening in Australia? Although we're a lot smaller, the same sort of operations could be being run against the people who are just like myself, just talking about shit they see on the internet. So it doesn't give me much faith in the freedom of speech globally. Now, by the weeks before an election in 2020, Twitter was so confused. Oh my, yeah, this is a good one. Okay, I need to breathe. By the 20, I can't even speak. So, after all this confusing lingo and requests coming through, and who's requesting what, we have the weeks before the election in 2020. Twitter was so confused, so Twitter's saying that they're confused by streams of incoming requests. They were overwhelmed. So the staffers who were like getting these requests had to ask the FBI which was. So did they even know what they were doing at this point in time? Did they have the ability? Many questions. Hi, Elvis. Do you know if this is something different than the information we are already receiving through the Signal channel? Trying to make sure we have all our bases covered while also optimizing resources. Thanks so much. This is a huge operation, I would imagine, and it would be extremely confusing to understand what was going on. It's insane. So Twitter's getting requests, I don't even know what they're doing. Like, hang on, wait, so we're blocking these accounts, why? It's just shit. I apologize in advance for your workload. Requests poured in from FBI officers all over the country, day after day, hour after hour. If Twitter didn't act quickly, questions came. Was action taken? Any movement? This is insane. Imagine, okay, at this point in time, not fully understanding every single thing I have just read. imagine if these accounts weren't actually affiliated with any of the adversaries that would pose threats to the election outcome in that particular country, being the United States of America. In this thought experiment, if these people weren't actually affiliated with the people who were supposed to be targeted, then could it have been that their freedoms to communicate were taken from them incorrectly? I think lawyers need to look at this shit, because every single action that's taken place, there should be consequences on both sides. Were they doing the right thing? Were the people posting the things doing the right thing? What if they weren't doing the right thing? The people trying to censor the people who were being censored. It gets very confusing. It gets very vague as to who is right and who is wrong in this situation. Yeah, but I could imagine in my mind situations where there was huge or mass censoring, possibly unjustly applied, based on what I'm reading here. Anyway, continuing on. Wrote senior attorney Stacia Cardelli, my inbox is really effed up at this point. Can you imagine the sheer amount of requests that were coming through? Have you ever tried to yeah. So imagine you have to react to an email or message that you receive, and it's agreed that you will take action when you receive this email. What if it gets to the point where you can physically not read all of the emails that are coming through to you? And what if somewhere in those emails you started receiving other instructions and you didn't realize you'd received those instructions and you're still just going along as normal? I could see that happening. And I'm just an idiot on the internet who can barely understand all the stuff I'm reading. So imagine a whole agency flooding an inbox with requests, and some technology company like Twitter trying to deal with this, who haven't been trained how to, combat, whatever the other agencies are trying to combat here. It makes it sound like Twitter was almost useless. They were overwhelmed. They didn't know what they were doing, and they just did as they were told. And it might even be they misunderstood what they were being told to do. It doesn't sound like a good platform to be on. And it really does sound like when they started banning people, it almost was a test run, because they said, "Oh, we can ban these people, and once we ban these people, nothing happened. Oh, we got away with it. Oh, we'll just keep banning people. Yay!" That's almost what it sounds like in a really, really simpleton way. Anyway, 39. It all led to the situation described by this person 2 weeks ago, which Twitter was paid 3.4 million essentially for being an overwhelmed subcontractor. Oh my God. That is what I just said, but I didn't even think about it like that. So it wasn't just they were having requests sent through by numerous agencies across the US arm of whatever they can do. It wasn't just that. I love how my emojis random. It wasn't just that. It was also that they got paid to do it. Not only did they get paid to do it, they got underpaid, which means this as Twitter thought they were doing the right thing. Oh my god. I'm just laughing so hard, man. That's insane. Like, so at the end of all this, the one thing I'm taking away is they were overwhelmed with the requests. And not only did they get, overwhelmed for being a subcontractor for the government agencies, they, in essence, got underpaid. So the amount of work they did was so huge, it was so large, that the government thought they'd underpay them. And they were an overwhelmed subcontractor. That just sounds like a perfect combination for legally and lawfully applying censorship to people who should have been censored. They're just, being, an overwhelmed subcontractor that, were underpaid. Right. So, does that mean the government couldn't create this program or system necessary to filter out what they didn't want to filter out? So instead of doing that, they had to go in through Twitter and try and get Twitter to do the work of what they thought needed to be done. And upon trying to do that, Twitter was so overwhelmed by the work, they couldn't get it done. Or they were so overwhelmed by the work, they made errors. Or they were so overwhelmed by the work, XYZ. And then the amount of work they were required to do was so huge, they actually were underpaid. Wow. Okay, for more on Twitter files, check out this guy. I need someone to break this shit down for me. That was a lot. I could just start to go down all sorts of conspiracy theories with that. What if the requests coming through, what if they were overwhelmed by the requests and the requests weren't even coming from the people who should have been sending them? I'm not even going to go down that rabbit hole. I'm sure people are trying to figure that out. A lot smarter than me. Now, I have a really bad cough, because I used to smoke a lot, and every now and then when I laugh really hard, I sound like I'm choking to death, which is not good. It's not good. Thank you guys for staying with me this whole time. I don't know if any of that made sense to you guys, but oh my god. Speechless. I am speechless on air. I want to say so much, but I don't think it's relevant, and it's just going to confuse more. And the best thing is to just read over that. I'm going to read over it if I get some time to read over it a few times, and just try and come to grips with what I read. It's just going to raise a whole lot more questions. Now, moving on from that, relative to Australia and reasons why not all mainstream media is cloak and dagger sort of stuff. Now, it could be performed by people who maybe shouldn't be performing it, but that's not to say they have any bad intentions, generally speaking. So with this here, we're seeing house prices to plunge by 20% by September, expert warns. It says Australian homeowners should be bracing for September bloodbath on Australian housing market, where a 20% price plunge is pretty much inevitable. Now, the figures I saw, no, I have not. I will look it up though. I haven't watched much of Glenn Beck's stuff. Yeah. With this stuff here, I've heard different data, as high as 30, a bit lower in South Australia, and things like that. So when they say 20%, I'm not sure if that's the average or what data they're using, but it sounds about right. Basically what I'm saying is the stuff we covered yesterday with the markets in the US, interest rates rising, they'll keep rising. I think they said about June they might, sort of stop. But then at that point in time, there'll be no levers to pull to fix the market, because lowering rates won't fix it. We're going to be in a deep recession, etc., etc., etc. You have to go back and look that one up. I'll have to go back and reread it, because I'm not sure what the best play is. Well, actually, I do what the best play is, in my opinion, my honest opinion, is... Actually, I won't say that, because I'm pretty sure we all know what it is. And it could sound like financial advice. Now, anyway, yeah, so saying, this is the media trying to signal that, the September bloodbath on the housing market could be coming. Now, again, as I said before, the mainstream media usually gets it wrong, but sometimes they don't, sometimes they're kind of accurate. So this is what they're forecasting, basically. So that would fall in line with the market Armageddon coming, So moving on from that, we have here, this is basically Cardi B, a rapper, and she was talking about, inflation and lettuces being expensive. And when I saw this, I didn't understand what was going on, but going back a few months, we had the same thing here. In some areas of Australia, we had very expensive lettuces. So I thought, well, I'll cover this. I won't play what she has to say. You can listen at your leisure if you want. But basically, we had, where's it? Here. Basically, we had lettuces as much as $11.99. Which is more than $7, but relative to US dollar, it's not as bad. That was due to supply line issues. They've been kind of resolved at the moment, but they're still more expensive. So again, this is a good example of how the media is not trying to, deceive anyone. It's just pointing out what is actually taking place at the point in time, which is, the media's job, not to, not to report on the Twitter files, being guided by a pissed off political party to try and get sway for the next upcoming election, Anyway, what was I saying? Here, this year, right, we had inflation. So inflation was about, where is it? Make sure you guys can see that. Hang on. I can really see it. Things will be the cheaper. Yeah, see, the price came down in lettuces because the supply line fixed itself up. So it's down 9.18%. It was about $2.23 December, Christmas time, beginning of the year, whatever. So these items were cheaper or the same. Now these items will be a lot more expensive. So around Christmas time, we saw things which were, again, I would say mostly due to the supply lines, a lot more expensive inflation-wise. So 60% up on the year, 50% up on the year, 30%. 25%, 12%, 5%, 40% for avocados. I guess this is retail price. So, and 25%, 35%, 10, 14, 22, 15. That's a lot of percents, man. That's concerning. Especially what we got told inflation is what. But yeah, we're seeing 50% inflation on certain items. Yeah, not good. Again, this is just this is just an article explaining the actual inflation. It's not that everything you read in the media is you can't trust any of it. It's no, some of it is just data, like it should be. Some of it you question if you have a deeper understanding. You could question this and say, well, yeah, exactly. It's it depends, and it depends if you're literally close to a, where is it? An egg farm, chicken coop, whatever. Then maybe the eggs are cheaper there if you got an easily accessible supply line. Yeah. Yeah, so it's just, I find that stuff interesting. And this is the funny thing. So this is leading into like so this is the media got it right. It sounds stupid though, but it's like they got it right about the chips, hot chips, you know, like frozen chips might be in soon a supply shortage because they might be in high demand. I remember reading this a while ago. I didn't pay much attention. Basically saying something about weather conditions, certain types, you know, so not all potatoes can be used to produce the stuff you see in the store. Then we fast forward to current day, and it's just saying, we've realized that there's actually a shortage coming, but then it explains how, you know, where is it? The variety that's used to snap freeze or whatever attributes to, you know, why there's shortages. And if there's shortages in that particular variety of potato, then, you know, you end up with a shortage. You can end up with a shortage if that factory is using those particular types. Anyway, so I thought I would add to this that as on the back of this article, what they're not saying is that when people get told in advance, you know, that there might be a shortage soon, and now you go into the shop, right? And you see this, you know, there's nothing there. So you're, oh crap, there's nothing there. All right, I'll buy something else. So you come back the next week or the next time you go shopping, and it's the shelf is full. I went to the shop the other day. There was no bread on the shelf. It was really weird. I think the truck just didn't rock up or something for that one day. I don't think it was an actual, like, you know, they ran out of wheat to produce bread. But anyway, with these ones, because you can freeze them, you might notice that there's a shortage. So then you decide to, next time you see them, purchase twice as much, you know. So you buy one packet. Next time you might purchase two, if they're back in stock, or two, or even three maybe, or four, who knows. So what does that do? That then amplifies, multiplies the already supply shortage, in essence making the supply shortage worse. Then what happens? Then the person who runs the store goes out and goes, oh shit, we just sold out of like our week supply in one day. We need to order 7 times as much stock. So the orders go in, you know, and then next thing, you know, the stock is back and you've got an oversupply of things. Like, you have a look in the shops, I guarantee even in the US, you guys have probably got hand sanitizer everywhere and it's dirt cheap. Just maybe, I don't know, that could be a thought of mine. But that's the sort of thing they don't talk about. It's really funny. It's like a supply chain that when you use the just-in-time system, so you go through that one order, you order the next lot in, and then it gets nuked because everyone's consuming more. It's not, how do you plan for that, you know? How do you plan for that without disrupting it? You have more people buying more of the stuff that's low in supply and making it even more low in supply. And when you finally get everything back to normal, it's all out of whack because then you got too much and you got to sell it at a discount, you know? And it's interesting stuff. But this can be applied to many things. We see, I guess the main one you're probably hearing about is the microchip processes and stuff like that, how they produce them. There is other things, but yeah, the microchips or whatever they are in cars and things like that. There was huge shortages, and it's not actually that there's shortages. It's just that when the factory realizes there's shortages, by the time they can start producing what they need to produce and it gets to the line and it is fixed, you know, it messes with your mind. It doesn't work the way you think it works, and the processes I guess need to be smoothed out. I'm not sure how though, because I think they said that something like if there's a supply shortage with these components, the orders back up, they finally produce all these like chips, they finally ship them out, but then, you know, 3 months later, it's time for the next batch, you know, and finally 6 months later, everything's back on track but you have this excess of chips, and it's just wasteful. Then you get cheaper chips, like microchips, not hot chips. But it's just messed up. It's it's not optimal. It's not logical. The thing is, I don't know how to fix it though, because you have, like, what do you do? Like, limit. I've seen some shops, they limit how many you can purchase. Like when everyone was buying all the shortages, like you can only purchase this much. But then if people are still purchasing this much in panic every day, they're coming through, you know, how can you limit that? Very, very confusing stuff. But yeah, sorry, got off track. What I was trying to say is basically sometimes the media can get it right. They do miss some little things. Like maybe they could explain when it comes back in, don't go and panic buy everything. It might help the supply line in the long run, like the sustainability of it. But people don't think like that. People always think for themselves. So they might be like, I want to buy more now. Mine. Who cares about everyone else? Basically, the selfishness of the individual affects funnily enough, themselves. But it also affects the whole as a community, the whole as a ecosphere, whatever. You could apply that to many aspects. Yeah, maybe cryptocurrency as well. And then, cool. And then we have this here, talking about cars. Yeah, Model Y. I thought those were pretty cool. These cars are pretty damn. It saved 4 people after they fell off a cliff. So, what? Extremely well built. Only because I'm thinking about getting a Model Y. Well, not me, the missus is. So, yeah. I thought I'd just talk about that. Now, and these things, they've had a interesting stuff. They went from being extremely hard to get to now you wait about, I think 2 or 3 months to order one brand new from the factory. It'll be in the showroom or possibly at your front door. 2 to 3 months. Now that's a lot better. That's a better turnaround than at one stage. It was about 12 months to 18 months. So it must have got through that initial supply, the shock of everyone purchasing everything up, to being mass shortages, to the factories being rejigged to produce the optimal amount of, you know, whatever the components are required to build these cars. But the funny thing about these things is that the Model Y is actually made in China. So with this whole COVID thing, I want to see if they can still keep their supply line steady, because yeah, I thought there was a sort of a weaning off of the Chinese supply line, because we all saw what happened during the COVID lockdowns. Things became very hard to source from there because, you know, the factory workers couldn't get to work and things like that. So I thought, what else I'll cover? I'll have a look at the Ukraine, Russia news. Most of the mainstream media is telling you that Ukraine's like doing good and Ukraine's almost winning the war against Russia, and then the people who actually understand a bit more how it works is saying no, there's no chance that Ukraine is winning. It's not going well, that's for sure, but Ukraine's not going to win this one. It's actually going pretty bad for the Ukrainians, but it's not good, again, to admit this because it might panic the population, I think. So this one here, the mainstream media is saying, basically, Putin's open to talks with Ukraine if Kiev accepts territorial losses to Russia in the east and south. And again, I'm not sure what they mean by accept territorial losses. Does that mean they want to say this is no longer Ukrainian, territory, in terms of like it's now Russian territory? It's now it flies under the flag of Russia. I'm not sure they're going to be happy with that. I'm not sure countries like the US are going to be happy with that, pouring in all the aid to to the Ukrainian people. And we saw how some of that may not have got there. I don't know, with the whole FTX thing, with the whole money laundering thing. Who knows what happened? We go all the way back to the beginning, and it's saying, how, not that, where was it? Even the Congress people were accepting using stolen FTX money in GOP primaries. Like, now, that's just the vicious circle. Then it says here, NATO chief Jens Stoltenberg warns it would be dangerous to underestimate Putin's ambitions in Ukraine. I agree with that. Maybe I'll stop streaming. I think other guys are on now, so I'll wrap this one up. I was just having a look at some hex.vision. Nothing really to, you know, nothing, you know, that we don't already know. We've got the rolling stakes, you know. I think hexfire.io is pretty good as well to use. What else? I can't believe it's 2023. Where are we at? Let's have a look at the next few. So, I guess you could point out, I guess, when you're looking at hex.vision, there was big, large chunks ending, but they could have been rolling. And the graph is deceiving because when you zoom in, you know, they're not all stacked on top of each other. It breaks it down further because, you know, as the data gets closer together, it pushes it together. It merges into one. As you spread them out further, it separates them into proper units, days, months, or days, or weeks, versus, you know, weeks, months. So we've got here, yeah, still a lot of activity. Hex is alive. What else? What else? That's about it, man. That's about it, people. Thank you for tuning in. I'll wrap this one up, and I might check out the, was it Glenn Beck with Whitney Webb? Sounds interesting. Alright, I will go and, yeah, go check out anything else hex related. Because I think, I'll close with my opinion, it's not financial advice, not legal advice, not tax advice, nothing. But I think in these type of economical conundrums that we're facing, we're going into, with the Dow falling more than 300 points, you know, companies facing bankruptcy, rising rates. We got, you know, maybe a 30% pullback in stocks and equities. What's that going to do to all the other markets? And then once that happens in June, when they decide to, you know, lower rates, what's that actually going to do to the economy? Is it going to make equities skyrocket, or is everything already going to be in a huge, deep recession? Yeah, anyway. All right. Peace out.